So the perfect intervals are actually just the ones I've listed here. Fourths, fifths, octaves, and unisons. That's the only perfect intervals that you will find. So you may be wondering, why do we call these a fifth, or a fourth, or an octave? Well, before I answer, take a moment and think about it. Look at what we've written here and see if you can figure it out. Well, if you can't, that's okay, I'll tell you. If I start on this C and count up to this one, including this note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 notes between here and here. And it's a perfect 8, or a perfect octave. Starting here, if I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 notes. And if I count here, how many do you think there are going to be? 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 notes. Now, very important. Remember, when you were doing scales, you were counting steps, and you didn't count the first note. Remember, like when you made your pattern of whole steps and half steps, you didn't count the first note because it wasn't a step. Here with intervals, we count the first note. Very, very important. So don't forget that it's not like scales where you don't count the first note. Here you must count the first note. And that's how you find your interval. So right now you could find a generic fifth or fourth or whatever, third, from any note. However, you wouldn't find the correct quality necessarily. So if we're just talking generic intervals, I could ask you, what's a fourth above G? And you could say G, A, B, C. C. I could say, what's a fifth above A? And you would tell me E. A, B, C, D, E. It's okay to count on your fingers if you need to. And if I asked you, what's an octave above D? Well, hopefully you don't have to think about that. It's a D, right? An octave is just from one pitch to the next one with the same A. So now let's talk about how to find interval qualities. I think it's important for us to remember to use bass clef sometimes so we don't forget about it. So we'll use the bass clef. Now, if I want to find a perfect interval, say I want a perfect fifth above A. What I need to do is start on A and think of the A major scale and go up to the fifth note. So I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I would think whole, whole, half, whole. Okay. E is going to be a perfect fifth above A because E will be the fifth note in the A major scale. Intervals can be seen two ways. We can see melodic intervals, where one note comes after the other, or harmonic intervals. When the two notes are written like this means that we would actually play them at the same time if we were going to perform these notes. So that's why we call them harmonic, because it's like a harmony. This way is like a melody. Most of the time when you're just writing intervals for an assignment, you'll be writing harmonic intervals. Let's try another one. Let's do a perfect fourth above C. Well, hopefully you remember that C major doesn't have any sharps or flats. So what would a fourth above C be? F. Very good. Now you might be wondering at this point, usually my students wonder this, why can't I just assume if I'm starting on a natural that a fifth above it is going to be a natural? Or if I'm starting on a flat, a fifth above it is going to be a flat. Usually at some point people want this kind of rule. Well, that's not really how it works. Because remember, with scales, sometimes the fifth note might have a sharp and sometimes not. For example, if I start on an F and I ask for a perfect fourth above F, and we go whole, half. In the case of F, a perfect fourth above the F is a B flat, not a B natural. So it's not enough to just count the letters. You need to make the scale. Because some scales have sharps and some scales have flats, even though the first note isn't sharp or flat. However, with perfect intervals, the notes usually match up. Actually, the only ones that don't are F and B. With the other intervals, though, you're really going to need to make the scale. So you might as well get in the habit right now. Let's do a few more perfect intervals, and then we'll go on to major intervals. Right now on the board, you'll see a few notes with intervals written beneath them. I'm going to let you take a minute to try and come up with the answers to what I have written up here, and then we'll check them. So let me step aside so you can write down what it is that I'm asking for, and then pause the video and take a moment to come up with the answer. Hopefully by now you have an answer, so I'm going to step aside and let you compare what I've written on the board to what you wrote down and see how close you were. Hopefully you got an F sharp, a C, a G, G sharp, G flat, B natural, and F natural. I hope those are the answers you got. If you didn't get that answer, one of the main errors people make is that they don't actually build a scale. Or they build a scale, but they forget that on the one hand, when we're doing the interval, we count the first note, but when we're thinking about the scale, we don't include the first note as your first whole step. So don't be confused by that.